Okay.
Or which you have CMG.
Trevor,
No, you do the facilitation and then you can write down the points. There you go.
Okay, so the first point I think is who agrees that the CMG as a concept or as an organisation is something you want to support and to go forwards as a unit.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, that's it. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen by itself. Look, ideally, I'd like to go away and someone else will do all the work and it'll all be very successful. But being in the real world, the only way to ensure that it's going to be successful is everyone, or as many people as possible, contribute and provide what assistance they can to make it work and make it successful. So that would be probably the number one thing is we're going to need a committee.
Absolutely. I'll bring up those slides. Go you can continue talking. I'll bring those slides.
This is what I said earlier. So what would the role of the committee be?
Marty, would you know? Marty, you probably know.
I was going to ask you
There
before,
are four main rows.
how much of this is already defined in the
Yeah.
CMG charter? Like, how much of this could we just pick up?
Yeah, ask you.
Three are main. You've got three main roles, but they recommend the fourth. You've got the president, you've got the vice president, and you've got a treasurer. So these are three main roles that you got to have. Now, CMG has has some amount of money that they've got in the bank, right? Which eventually will have to be transferred at some point to the organization so that we could use it for our workshops, Now CMG globally charges, I think there's some $300 they charge for membership. Initially we thought that, we are not going to charge for membership. And I'm open to that discussion. By charging for membership, is there some value? Can we provide value? At this point in time, I thought, when you start, right, we just meet, we discuss, we work out initiatives that we want to focus on. And then once you get the committee on board, work together to decide what the actual charter should be. But in terms of positions, three main positions, you've got the vice president, senior vice president, and the treasurer. Those are the three main positions.
Is someone holding those positions now?
Absolutely. So there's a group in Sydney, they're ready to let go. However, according to law, we need to have a set of replacements ready. So we've got to basically come together again in Jan, and we've got to hold an election. I need to find out what's the process, right? And then among you, we nominate the right people, put up their hands. We probably have 5 positions, and we add probably a director and something like that. It's, have
And the secretary.
secretary, something like that. So one of the reasons being, right, I believe very strongly that we need representation from academia, right? Mohammed over here is from University of Swinburne, you guys would have heard, right? Professor John Grundy, we haven't met him today, fantastic guy, right? He wants us to come and talk to his students. I want his students to come over here, see what we do, right? Learn about the problems over here, so that when they go, they can make a difference, and they can help us create more opportunities, or we can help them create more opportunities. Nikta wants to come and speak to us. The bottom line is, I think these positions, as Marty has suggested, need to be inclusive. We've got to have partners, we've got to have academia, we've got to have probably research and professional. So we've got to have a combination of those. And I think 4 or 5 positions probably should cut it.
Yeah, my observation, I don't know how big the Sydney chapter is, the bikies up there. But,
They're all dead.
where do we get our jackets? I just think it's pretty early days, and given that there's only 16 people here or whatever, 17, 25% on the committee sounds a bit onerous to me, and I think we'll probably just benefit from being a little less formal if we can get away with it. I don't know how that sits with CMG as the granddaddy organisation or whatever, but that's my thoughts. I think it's got a better chance if it's less formal. And I'm a member of Ruby on Rails user group in Australia, and it's quite big and popular. And they have like 4 rails camps a year, like, you know, where people get together and they change those positions, you know, 4 times a year. So it's like, you know, they might continue the treasurer because sometimes it makes sense for that position to sort of roll over. But, you know, I don't think it needs to be too serious in terms of like the size of the group.
So you're right with the size of the group. I think legally we are bound by law. So it's a registered society. It's registered as a non-profit organization. And if we want to continue to use it, and if we want to use the brand, so I think you got to be very careful. If we want to use the brand, we've got to abide by the CMG charter. If we decide CMG is not the platform, we just create Australian professionals of performance or whatever, you can do whatever you want with it.
Well, that is another question. Well, the first question I asked was about CMG, but that's probably the wrong question to ask. We all agree that there needs to be, we want to have some sort of forum or body to do what we've come here to set up. It doesn't have to be CMG. That's been a useful platform to use initially.
But we get a lot of leverage if we do.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
it's a vehicle, it's an ideal one to use.
Yes.
So
there's
It's got
usually,
constitution, it's got charters, it's got everything there.
there's usually people from Australia that go to the mothership
Yeah.
back in the US every year.
So I think even having said that, I think there's tremendous leverage. So the government has money to give for workshops, conferences and things like that. The government has money to give for different initiatives. University, academia, research will be more aligned to work with us, right? I'm not trying to stick to a brand as such, but the fact of life is that having a formal group gives us the opportunity to link with all of these different associations and organizations. And at some point in time, Marty and I have just spoken about it at a very high level. We want to work with the Australian software industry. You know, let's be very frank. If you and I want visibility, if we want people in the industry to know that we can make a difference, right? If we want them to know that if they want applications to be better, they've got to involve us earlier in the life cycle. We've got to get involved with them. And having our own chapter, which has got nothing to do with any other organization, is going to make it very difficult for brand recognition.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm not suggesting we create like, you know, the performance mugs, Melbourne Music Group, but wouldn't ching. But no, I just think we should. Yeah, I think we should do the minimum,
Absolutely.
the minimum effort required to fit in with the rules,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just, you know, reuse as much as possible. But I don't think we should just be creating positions for.
Oh, we could
Okay.
You know.
stick with the 3,
Yeah.
mandatory,
Yeah.
but if anyone else wants to participate, they're welcome to fill another position on the committee.
We're masters of virtual users, you know.
So going back to the vehicle, and this was something that Trevor and I spoke about, whether CMG is the right vehicle to use or not. You know, CMG name comes with good, I suppose bad. It's a technical group. So what we've talked about before is how do we educate people who are non-technical about what is passionate to us and we think makes a difference. So part of the conversation we have with Trevor is, you know, maybe do we try and say approach a group like the AIIA, which represents all of the IT industry across Australia. I'm sure CompuWare are on that one as well, and that talks with one voice to government and to the IT industry. So maybe if we organised a chapter within that talks about performance capacity, performance testing, etc., might be another approach.
I don't know. I mean, for me, like CMG was a big enough hook to come to know, and I've been pretty selective over the Christmas break.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you know, I guess I'm interested, and I know it's got history, but I don't think, personally, I don't see that as a blocker. I just really just matters what we do from.
It doesn't have to be one or the other. I mean, you can still work with the national sort of computer organisations in Australia as well. I mean, it has CMG, I guess.
Yeah.
But to have something we could try and see how well it works for us, with the option of changing to something else if we find it's not working.
What are the restrictions and limitations of sticking to the brand from the mothership company in the States?
Restrictions.
Well, do we have to abide by some limitations or restrictions
So there's
because
nothing
we
on
are
the
part
brand.
of the brand?
There's nothing on the brand as such. There is a charter that basically says code of conduct, which is a professional code of conduct, which it says, you know, you do the normal things, you don't misuse the CMG platform and things like that. It doesn't restrict you in terms of telling you where you can present, where you can't present. There's absolutely nothing like that. And in fact, I've been in touch with, so there's Dennis Calm, who's now taken over as the CMG Vice President in the US. CMG worldwide, just to let you know, is going through a lot of change. As you heard others say, CMG is pretty much in the process of dying and reinventing itself. And the committee knows that, and they are working on redefining who they are. The bottom line is, I don't care. I don't care, because for us, what I care about is about the environment we work in over here. And what can we do? How can we use an existing brand, right, which is known to a certain extent, and grow that brand for our benefit? Because at the end of the day, if I look at it, right, if we can create more opportunities, why not? If we can create more awareness, why not? And if it's an existing brand that people recognize, why not?
Alright, we have hit our 10-minute
I
limit. Do we want another 5?
I think, yeah,
I think
because
we have another
there are some
5.
important things, yeah, another 5
Can we
probably.
find out the direction of the CMG worldwide?
So they actually, Denise Kam is going to go through this process of trying to figure out what they want to do. Because CMG internationally has been publish papers, talk about papers, go back home. And if you realize, or if you heard about what we've spoken about, we are taking a very industry-focused approach. Right? We can all write papers, right? We can all publish papers, we'll all go back home, we'll all be great techies. At the end of the day, is it going to create more jobs for us? Is it going to create more opportunities for us? Is it going to make us more productive? No. Gone are those days of writing papers and getting your organization to pay for you to go and present those papers. So I think we're approaching it a different way.
One thing I'd like to point out is that the idea of involving the industry and raising awareness and so on, a lot of the problems we were discussing in the first couple of topics related to awareness and education and so on. And so
Talk about that.
it would I would hope that we'll go part way and eventually a long way towards addressing those issues that we're facing regularly.
So what else? What are the other things you're going to talk about? So what about the frequency of meetings?
What do we need to have to take away from tonight?
So the main things I think we want to take away from tonight is, what's the structure? I'm not talking about structure in terms of the committee, obviously that we'll talk about. In terms of how do we want to, how do we want to run this? Right? I mean, do you want to meet once a couple of months? Do you meet once a month? Do you like this format? I personally think we probably have some structured, some unstructured. So we probably have 25% structured, 75% unstructured. Have a combination of both. NICTA wants to come and talk to us, so we got to give them an opportunity to come and speak to us. So academia, John Grundy wants to come and talk to us from Swinburne. We got to give them an opportunity. So what do you see as the format going forward? What would you like?
Well, given it's Christmas, I would have thought it would have been other meetings about February anyway.
Yeah, I was about to say we should probably pick February as our next meeting date.
Okay.
It's nothing's feasible before then anyway.
Okay. And what kind of a format? Do we follow the same 25% unstructured, 75% structured?
We definitely need pizza.
Yeah, I've had enough nuts and chips, guys.
That'll depend on who the host organiser.
Absolutely. So that's the other
thing.
thing.
Provide for us.
Yeah, I'm sure we can find.
I could find one.
Yeah, we can get that.
Do we go for a 2-hour thing? Because we're almost at 2 hours now.
Absolutely, I think 2 hours.
I think
Yeah,
2 hours
I
more than
think
enough.
that's
And
Yeah.
I'd like to think if we do it at 5:45, no offence guys, then we wouldn't get locked out of the building. Become late.
So the thing is, we never, it was a lot of effort to actually get things, and Marty helped out. Thanks so much. Thanks for everything, Marty,
Yeah.
helping us get started. But it was a long process just getting everything lined up.
Mm.
So there's a lot of interesting things to come, but yeah, once
Sounds like at the February meeting, there's people who want to talk to us, but we will need to have an election.
Yeah, so we probably use this Feb meeting, so let's keep in touch over email. We use the Feb meeting to basically have a committee, right, and basically have those positions, and basically have people from academia, research, have a combination of different people. So I guess, it's easy for us as professionals to think about performance the way we do. It's so important for us to look at the other perspective as well. Right? And that's the reason why I say having a little bit of inclusive committee, even if it means additional positions, not for the purpose of just having them, for the purpose of getting them to do work. So the committee is not there to just wear the badge. I see people on the committee as people who contribute, maybe an hour a week, couple of hours, a week, doing stuff that needs to be done. It's just not a lot of stuff, not a lot of work. So, does that make sense? So once a couple of months, and 25% structured, 75% unstructured. I think that, does that make sense?
Can we just, maybe rather than locking ourselves into something, why don't we just figure out a structure for Feb? And go, okay, we're gonna spend the first hour talking about Brewer, and we're gonna spend half an hour having an election, and we're gonna have.
Yeah, and if we've got people who wanna come along and talk, they'll need a time slot allocated.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely.
And if
It
this
should
sort
be
of
early on, I
format's
would have thought.
Yeah.
not going to work for
Although the other thing is Feb might be a little soon for that. I think we've got a few too many decisions to make, and
I think I was thinking more towards the end of February, mind you, because it's got.
yeah. But I was thinking we
If you've
probably
got an
want to have a
education
meeting.
guy coming in, he's not back till the end of February anyway, early March, right?
Yeah.
So,
We
yeah,
may
it's
want to
a-
hold that over to the next meeting.
That's what I
and
think, 'cause I
we should
think-
keep it,
Yeah,
getting ourselves sorted out what we're doing,
yeah, housekeeping.
and
first.
then
Then
you start inviting people into it
Yeah.
once we've actually got an idea of what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So I think the next one we don't have that.
Do we need to be paid up members to vote?
No, you don't. So yeah, so no, you don't need to be paid members to vote. However, the top three need to be registered with CMG International. You don't need to be initially. We can run it the way we want. They need to be eventually part of CMG International. So the other thing is we've got an invitation for. Actually, we've got two invitations. I'll let Michael speak of one. We've got an invitation already to Industry Day being hosted by NICTA, right? Which is we probably have to go around our own cost, but Sydney, NICTA hosts the conference. It's a software architecture conference hosted every year. This time it's in Sydney. They want us to participate. So I'll get
When's
the
that?
Sorry?
When's that?
It's I think April or May. April. Right. Swinburne is a sponsor as well. Swinburne wants to conduct a workshop. Professor John Granby wants to host a workshop, industry workshop with CMG. That's the other event. So I'll put on a list of events which we were to talk about. I think there's some really good things that we can do together to get increased visibility, socialize with people outside of our circle, work with academia. So just to summarize, there is the first invite from NICTA, which is April or May 14th, I'll give you the dates. We've got the industry workshop, which Swinburne wants to work with us and set up. And do you want to tell us about the ANZ TV?
I just volunteered to present on software performance engineering at one of the ANZ TV SIGIS meetings next year. So they've already got
ANZ TV?
Australian New Zealand Testing Board. They look after the ISTQB training courses and curriculum and that type of activity, and have roughly quarterly meetings with more presentations. They line up a couple of speakers and they get together, network, put on food and a couple of interesting presentations. So I volunteered to do one on software performance engineering. So that's probably going to be middle of next year. The next meeting, they've got speakers booked for the next meeting in February, I think, unless one pulls out.
Apart from the elections, we also need to talk about roles and responsibilities that around the website and around the marketing of CMG. So is that something that we reckon is a valid responsibility, or is that everything Trevor takes on himself?
No, I think it's got to stop being me, because I don't want the organization to be me, right? I want, if people see benefit in it.
Well, it's not fair on you either.
Yeah. I mean, I was happy to do it. In fact, I love doing it. I think it's a great opportunity to meet people outside of just Accenture, right? It's fantastic to meet you guys. I've had a wonderful opportunity to meet each one of you in person, and I think if we work together and spend probably half an hour, 1 hour a week, we can try to make a difference. Now, as I keep saying, I don't want to change the world. I want to make us more competitive and more relevant. So as Prashant was saying, I'll put on a list of activities. Michael is helping with the video recording. Michael, thanks so much. Thanks for that. Prashant is helping out with, with the bridge. Didn't work. With
nobody RSVP'd to the event, so yeah, that's fine.
So I need some help with logistics as well. Just coordinate the partners. At the end of the day, we want to rotate it at different partners. We want to meet our partners. We want to meet different people at different partners. So I need some help with coordination of those, and just coordination with the meetings. So I think right now it's really, really simple. There isn't much work to do. But as we start taking on more responsibility, individuals who have the willingness to help should put up their hands and help us do stuff that will make us more relevant, I guess.
Hopefully if that occurs, there'll be more people to assist with the workload as well.
So it sounds like a lot of our organisational structural stuff will get decided in Feb. Could we maybe flesh out stuff we're going to structure for Feb? 2-hour block, we wanna have an hour of content
Yep, I think that's a
and
good idea.
half an hour of admin and elections and
Yeah.
stuff, and
Yeah.
maybe half an hour of, a chat.
Yep.
And maybe from this meeting, we all take away an action to try and sign up a few more people
Yeah.
individually that are connected to that group.
Elections.
Well, I mean, really the payoff for me is that 20 minutes of discussion that we had. So out of our
Yeah.
2 hours, we've spent lots of time talking about structure and all that's great. All that's necessary going forward, but I've had 20 minutes of payoff. So I'd like an hour of payoff next month, in Feb,
Yeah.
to, that's why I'm part of it here.
Yeah, to election discussion.
Do you wanna see more of the post-it notes on the board like that again, or what do you wanna do?
Do people think the post-it note thing worked?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it worked.
It did.
If someone brought along a slide deck and they said, hey, I've got a slide deck that goes for 15 minutes and put it on a post-it note, people would vote for.
I've got election roles, which is the roles people like to take on in within the group. Just discussion as we had conference type and general networking. Does that sound reasonable for a
I was saying 2 hours,
2 hours?
so 6 to 8.
Just the basis for anything that the next meeting.
What sort
Let's
of,
try and get 4-15 minutes from that.
what sort of weighting do we want to put? Or what time do we want to allocate to everything?
What's the workload model?
I think 30 minutes elections. 30 minutes, you'll spend 30 minutes.
Even not online.
There's probably be people sticking their hands up and so yeah, we've got to.
Defining roles and.
15 minutes for that.
The role people that are taking.
Yeah, but you put roles and elections are the same thing, 45 minutes.
Yeah, I agree.
Your networking is 15 minutes, and put an hour for discussion,
But look,
which is your timetable.
Yes.
It's like that?
So can people nominate their topics before the meeting? Can they basically nominate them online just using Meetup?
Oh, that's a good idea.
That might be
I
better.
think we don't want to prevent people from bringing stuff or
No.
thinking about stuff on the night, but if, maybe that will, if something's really popular,
Yeah.
someone might put some,
I was gonna say like lightning talks are pretty good for that as well, which it's like absolute 5 minute, sort of, slides or whatever, but just to talk, present something, whatever that's, a problem or whatever that's interesting.
well, I would really like to hear about projects that people are working on. Like I'm doing some interesting stuff with cloud-based infrastructure, or cloud-based test environments and prod environment.
Yep.
There's all sorts of learning curve I've had on that one, and I'd like to share. And other people I'm sure are doing interesting stuff that would teach me stuff.
All done?
Excellent. Marty?
No? All good, thank you.
Are we fussy about the location of the next meeting?
Absolutely not.
Like, do people prefer CBD area, or what's the story? What's the preference?
So it's-
What's consensus, right?
It's easy.
CBD?
Okay,
Okay.
most of us will be in this area
Yep, that's
most
fine.
of the time.
So
What time?
So,
What time?
Time.
well, we're saying 6 PM again, but I'm saying 5:45,
Mm.
so people don't get locked out.
Well, it
Most buildings-
takes a while for people to.
Yeah,
get
but most
settled.
buildings shut their doors at 6, that's all.
Does anyone have any trouble getting here? Would it be easy to come here or no, to the venue earlier? Or
By 5 or 10
happy
minutes or
with the
something?
time
Sounds good.
yeah, we can do that.
earlier?
You can?
Would 5:30 too early or?
5:30.
5:30 is a bit early for me.
I think 5:30 is a bit too early, but 5:45, just to avoid that door shutting exercise that we had.
It depends on the building.
Well, most buildings had that. That's all.
And
Yeah.
we're looking at late February,
Yep.
maybe the third or fourth week.
So, sorry, in a lean startup-y kind of way, our key metric, are we providing something of value to people, is do we get more people coming along to the Fed meeting than we had tonight. So I think, you know, if we're trending downwards, we might be doing something wrong. If we're trending upwards, then we're doing something right.
But there's other testing organisations out there too that should have attended here, I would have thought, and they haven't turned up. No, I don't know if they would have involved or not.
On that meetup, there's a agile testing group and agile PM group. Maybe we can send an invitation to that group. There are a lot of testing groups on meetup.
I think if we produce some minutes or some sort of outcome, we could use that as an advertising mechanism and say, hey, we had this great meeting, we talked about this stuff, you might want to come along to the next one.
Okay. So just to confirm, so we got a 30 minutes block initially, then we got a 15-minute rolls.
We're saying it's 45-minute block
45-minute block, okay, yeah,
for
yeah.
that,
For that, okay.
to get the admin stuff
Admin
done.
are sorted out. Then we've got the discussion.
An hour.
Yeah,
No,
why not?
I put the networking in the middle, I reckon, because we probably need a break after 45 minutes of admin stuff.
Yeah, okay, do that,
And then network. Correct.
and then just do the discussions at the end.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thanks for the drinks.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
We're a supporter of
Thank you too.
CMG, always have been, so happy to be involved in kicking it off again.
So the venue will be here.
Oh, we can sort that out.
We'll sort that out.
All right.
I'll sort that out. I think we can go.
Okay.